Hi, I'm Smeester. Welcome to another Smeester's Corner. All right, today's topic is character. So the questions around character we're going to ask are, how do you want to be remembered and who do you want to be? If you haven't started asking yourself those questions, you should start asking yourself those questions. So who do you want to be? You should be living with some sort of goal or purpose in mind. Who do you want to be? Instead of just letting life happen to you. And then the second question is, how are you going to be remembered? Because you're going to be remembered based on how you are. Okay? And everybody's going to go. Everybody could go at any time. So if you did go, what would people say about you? This is when the character comes in. We should all want to be remembered based on our character. That's something specific and tangible that you can be remembered for, or that's a goal for you to try to be. What you don't want to do is have really vague goals like, I want to be a good person, because who knows what that means? Or I want to be a really nice person, because who knows what that means? Everybody thinks that they're a good person, and everybody thinks that they're a nice person. There's nobody out there running around thinking, oh, I'm a jerk and I'm okay with that. Everyone thinks that they're a good person. When those people go, their friends and family are going to say very nice things about them, because everybody wants to be remembered as a nice person. Okay, but were you that? Even people who do evil things probably think that they're a nice person. Okay, so for example, I've read a lot of literature on why average people end up doing evil things. Well, typically the person who ends up doing an evil thing thinks that they're doing that thing for a virtuous reason, because people trick themselves in their head. They don't say, I'm going to be a bad person right now. So your goal should be more than just to say, I want to be a good person or I want to be a nice person. Just to give you an example, I've had students in the past, there's only a few, like maybe every year or one or two, who they would probably say, well, they definitely would say, I'm a nice person or I'm a good person if you asked them that. But to me, I don't think they're a nice person and I don't think they're a good person. I think they're super entitled sometimes. I think they treat people badly. So your goal should be more than just those two vague things. Your goal should be, I want to be a person of character, because you will be remembered for your character, not how nice you were or not whatever a good person means. You're going to be remembered for your character. If being remembered warmly is important to you, or being a good person is important to you, then you should work on these things. There are things that you can do today, things that you can do tomorrow, to strengthen your character. You can actually strengthen it. You're not born with it. What you can say is, I want to be remembered for X, but then you kind of do the opposite of those things and think that somehow that's going to work out. For example, you can't say, I want to be remembered as a really honest person. And then sometimes you go around stealing stuff. And you make the excuse, well, it was just this one time, or they're not going to miss it, like they can afford it, or something like that. That's not good character. And that doesn't add up in most people's heads. Every decision that you make today either gets you closer to being a good person with character, or it gets you further away from that goal. So, what is character? Let's define it. Character is a feature or an attribute which makes up or defines an individual. So what are your characteristics or attributes? Okay. Now, I'm going to list some of things that when we think of people with high character, these are the things that most people think of. Okay, so you can self-evaluate and see like which one of these that maybe you need to work on, or which one of these that you're pretty strong in. 2 points to consider before I get into that are, you can say like, oh, I have some of those qualities, but the question is, how consistent are you with them? Do you just do them sometimes, or is that a person who most people would define you by? And the second point to make before we get into this is, you don't really know your character until you're tested. Your true character tends to come out when people are tested. So it's easy to act nice when things are going well and there's nothing to be angry about. But when you're tested and things get rough, how do you treat people? How do you act? That's when the character shows. So the following things are traits that a person with high character would exhibit, even when they're tested and even when they're having a bad day. Number one, they're consistent, which means they keep their promises, they're not breaking promises, and people can depend on them because they know how they're going to react to situations. They're not happy one moment and then something happens and then they're really passive aggressive the next moment. They're consistent. Their character is consistent, so people know what they're going to get. They know how you're going to act. They know how you're going to respond. Number 2, they show humility, which means they're humble, which means things like they don't think things are beneath them. They're willing to help out in any way that they can. They forgive people. They don't hold things over people's heads all the time. They forgive and they can move on. That's having grace for people. And they just don't assume the worst intentions by people. So when someone says something or does something, you just don't assume the worst and interpret what they just did or said in the worst way possible. You give people grace, the benefit of the doubt. Number 3 is do your job. You do the thing that you need to do, not the thing that you want to do. Because those are 2 really different things. So if you need to be working on your homework, or if you need to have a conversation with someone, you're doing that thing, you're not doing what you just want to do. It's a difference of commitment over convenience. So you're not just doing what's convenient for you, you're doing what you've committed to do because you're a person with high character, because that's what you need to do, because you have a responsibility and you take responsibility in your life. Number 4, you are honest and fair, which means you don't lie or cheat, ever. You take the consequences of whatever it is you need to take the consequence for with whatever it was you did. So you're not trying to lie your way out of it. You're not trying to cheat so you don't have to have consequences. You don't justify it by saying, oh, it's just this once, oh, I'll do it better next time, I just don't want to have to deal with this right now. Because when you lie and cheat, you are training yourself on who you're going to become. You're in training. Every day you're in training. So that's where you want to go? Think that's going to work out for you? Think people are going to say they're a good person when you do stuff like that? Number 5, have some principles or values that you live by. Because you can't just exist and then things happen to you and then you won't know how to respond if you don't have principles or values. Because how do you respond to those? Your principles or values give you boundaries, and then that tells you how to respond and what to do and things like that, so you don't feel lost. And if you don't know what principles or values to live by, I'm listing them for you so you can pick from some of these. Last one is number 6, be trustworthy. So do what you say you're going to do. Don't be flaky, and be on time. People really appreciate someone who's on time, because when you're not on time, people feel like you didn't appreciate their time, because time is really important to people. Time is really important to people. The last thing I want to talk about is the shift in mindset. So you might have to shift your mindset for these sorts of things. And people with high character, they have a shift in mindset. And here's what some of the shifts are. They shift from embracing ease to embracing difficulty. So they don't just take the easy road all the time. They embrace doing the difficult work because they know they need to, because they do their job. They do what they know they need to do, not what they want to do. They shift from living for themselves to living for others. They shift from thinking of themselves as a whole to thinking of themselves as a part of something. So the whole means you're doing everything for you. When you realize that things that life just isn't about you, and there's greater things to live for than just yourself, then you become a part of something else, part of something bigger that gives you community, that gives you a purpose, that gives you something to live for. They shift from control to surrender. So they know that there's some things in life they can't control, and they're okay with that. And so they don't try to control those things. And just knowing what those things are can be a big step too. But you're not trying to control everything all the time, because if you are, you're probably trying to control people. And if you're trying to control people, you're probably doing things and saying things a lot of times that are mean or manipulative to control. Sometimes you have to embrace not being in control and saying, this is out of my control. Okay, I'm going to give it up. It actually is really freeing. They shift from thinking about the temporary to the eternal. So they're not thinking about things that are temporary, like possessions or your last post and how many likes you got or something like that. They're focused on the eternal, things that will last, their friendships, their family. So I hope this helps and gives you something to think about. Thanks for watching.